Welcome everyone to the Goods & Co. podcast. My name is Isaac Matthews and I am your host. Here on the podcast, we share the stories of local businesses and artists in the Northwestern Ontario region of Canada, proudly supporting ventures owned by members of the LGBTQ, BIPOC, and women-led communities. Today's episode is brought to you by the new Woodside Bar, located in the Goods & Co. Market, downtown Thunder Bay, bringing you crafted cocktails and a curated wine and beer menu to suit all taste buds. Follow along on Instagram at the Woodside Bar. That again is at the Woodside Bar. All right, so welcome to the Goods & Co. podcast. We're so excited to have you here, Heather. So we like to dive right into kind of the origin stories of local businesses and local artists in the city. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this graphic design kind of world that you're in now.
Okay. My name is Heather. I'm originally from Thunder Bay. I moved away to go to school for design, and then came back and started working. So design was kind of always a thing, although I didn't really know that before. But it was always kind of the thing that I was into, the thing that I was drawn to. I was artistic as a kid. I used to put on Disney movies and pause them and then set up like the whole animator's desk and like count out the book pages, number the pages, figure out like where I was going to put the text.
Wow.
Never finished a project, but like always went full force on the planning.
As a kid,
yeah. And then I just thought that's what I was going to do when I was older, because that's the only artistic job that I knew of. And when I was maybe about 10 or so, went to Disney World, went for a tour of the animator's studio, and saw all the people working and thought, like, this looks horrible.
Oh, really?
Like, this looks so boring. What am I going to do? And just thought, like, I was going to amount to nothing because I just didn't know what else I could possibly do that would be creative or artistic. And then sometime in high school, had a friend who was older who was preparing for her portfolio review for OCAD. And seeing her portfolio, like everything clicked that this was something that was like you could take in school. It was a profession, all of that stuff, that graphic design existed. And that was kind of that. So then I was kind of on the path of how do I do this too?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I did go to design school, which I know is not the path for everyone, but it was a good path for me. I think you definitely can be self-taught.
Yeah.
But going to school was great. And then I worked at an agency in Winnipeg for a number of years on some really big clients, like Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Casinos of Winnipeg and that type of thing. And then just really wanted to move home. So came back to Thunder Bay, as people do after they've been away for too long. And worked at an agency here, which was great for about 10 years or so. And then after having kids, just kind of shifted to this new thing.
Right. And how long have you been your own entity now?
About 3 years, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. It's great that you found a place to use that skill and that love of art that you had. I know a lot of people who, especially in the arts, they never know if there's an actual career out there available for you. You just have this passion for this art, right? You don't know. They don't talk about in high school necessarily the career paths for artists.
Totally, yeah.
But that's great that you found that. And when you went to design school at the time, like, not to, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the world of digital design is relatively new within the last 5-10 years, I'd say, in terms of a big boom of it. When you went to design school, was it very focused on digital design marketing and stuff, or was it more of a fine art kind of thing?
It was a bit of both. Like, we definitely had life drawing and that type of thing, but I took graphic design
specifically
as opposed to fine art. But the school that I was at, you could specialize in creative writing or digital media or graphic design and so on. So it was very geared towards like layout, digital illustration. As opposed to more of like the fine art side of things. But that was 2004 or so.
Right.
So at that time, Adobe was just kind of taking over all of the programs. So I learned both, like what like all the oldies used, plus like the new way of doing things. So that was interesting that like there's a different kind of approach there, or like different knowledge base maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
There was still some hands-on stuff like before graphic design, before it became all digital, was there was a lot of paste up or like cutting things and like collaging basically, which went to be photographed, which then became the ad.
Oh, okay.
So we did have to learn some of that kind of stuff at that time, although it wasn't practical and I've never done that.
Right.
But it does kind of give you a different understanding of why things are the way they are. Yeah.
Awesome. So I've gone through some of your social media, and I think that you have a very distinct style. It's very you, and it stands out a lot from not only people I've seen in the world, but especially in Thunder Bay. I find you have a very unique signature style to your marketing and your branding, and what you kind of bring to the branding of companies. Is there anything specific that you could think of that has maybe inspired you to lean in that direction more than anywhere else?
Yeah, I think I just really like old printed things. So as much as I feel like the stuff that I'm designing is modern, like it's not finished until like I give it that old printed whatever. And I just like that. And I can't not do that. Like when I do something and it doesn't kind of end there, it feels either not like me or not finished.
Right.
So I think it's just kind of like it is modern, but it has like some soul or some grit or something like that
heritage to it.
Yeah. Everything's a bit wobbly somehow.
Do you kind of when you're talking with new clients or whatnot, do you kind of slip in the fact that like, I appreciate what you want, but you need to know that I will bring this to it regardless?
Yes, sort of. Most people now will say like, oh, we love X and X logo that you designed, and they're looking for that. Otherwise, they would probably seek out someone else, which is also great because everyone's got their own thing, clients and designers or studios. Occasionally, there'll be a client that says, oh, I already know what I want. And I kind of take that as, well, that's nice, but like, I'm not going to do that. Either we can work on it together, or you can have someone else do exactly what you want, but like, let me at least show you what I would do. And most of the time that works out.
Right. I find that digital design and digital designers, the general public may not know as much about the fact that they usually have unique signatures that they bring to their designs, much like photographers, where certain people shoot a certain way or edit a certain way and really bring their kind of feel to the photography. Designers, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I find designers are very much the same way, and people may not know that as much. They think they're just hiring someone to design their logo how they want it.
Definitely. Yeah. Totally agree with that.
So if you want to design, make sure you're picking the right person, just like a photographer or anyone else.
Yeah, and I think designers still have like a responsibility to make sure that one client stands apart from the rest.
Yes.
But they're definitely bringing themselves to that as well.
Yeah, awesome. And have you found that being back in Thunder Bay now and starting your own company, there's been good support within the local community? Are you doing design for mostly local people in Thunder Bay, or are you kind of expanding to anywhere in the world? I guess you can kind of do it from anywhere, right? So
yeah, I think it is mostly people in Thunder Bay, mostly like small to medium-sized businesses.
Nice.
Through social media, I'm assuming, primarily, I do have more and more clients kind of finding me from Minneapolis and Toronto and just kind of a close-ish area. No one's especially far away yet, but that's kind of interesting how that happens.
Northwestern Ontario kind of bubble.
Yeah,
absolutely. So then you are very involved in the Goods & Co market. I believe you are doing the marketing and branding specifically for it. Before we get into that, obviously you have a relationship with Maylin, the owner and very much runner of the Goods & Co market that's going to be coming up. So why don't you tell us how you kind of got involved with May first, and then we can talk about the direction you're going with the market.
I got involved with May through Craft Revival. So I started out as a participant of Craft Revival. She asked me one season to do the seasonal artwork, which changes every May and November.
Right.
And then it just kind of, she had sucked me in, and there was no leaving at that point. So
she has that
generally,
effect on people.
she does. The seasonal artwork happens, and then the next season comes, and there's a new person. But she kind of just said, like, you're here now.
Right.
And there was no leaving. So that's how that happened.
And how long ago was that?
3 years ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago, maybe.
So then you've been working with her on designs for Craft Revival since then.
Yeah. So we still try to switch up who the seasonal person is, so that we can kind of make sure that we're profiling other artists and that type of thing for the main kind of artwork that's the centerpiece of that season for Craft Revival, spring or fall. But there still is the Craft Revival brand.
Right.
All of the stuff that goes into like the program, the signage, all of the things for the actual event. And then the social media is probably the biggest one.
Right. So then obviously that blends into the market and this huge project that you guys have. Can you speak on the kind of inspiration or direction of the branding for the market? Because I find it very interesting where you guys are doing and what you're using for inspiration. Do you mind speaking on that a bit?
Yeah, so we started looking at inspiration for the market just to kind of define how much of Eaton's we were bringing in. Like, it is an iconic building, but Eaton's also isn't everything. So we put together a few different mood boards to say, like, very inspired by Eaton's, inspired by Art Deco, inspired by so on, craft or whatever it may be. So we kind of leaned into the Art Deco side of things at the beginning. But I mean, when you think of Art Deco architecture, this building is Art Deco, but like it's not the Chrysler building.
Right.
Like it's not Gotham City here.
Yeah.
So to go full force into something that was completely Art Deco didn't really make sense.
Right.
But so much of Thunder Bay and the vibe of Thunder Bay is kind of that like late 70s, like when Thunder Bay became Thunder Bay. So we kind of evolved to this like 1970s Art Deco style, which is maybe we've made up, but that's what we're going
That's
with.
okay. It's good to be unique. Yeah, and I know that obviously the architecture is going to be more modern, so there's only so much you can do, I'm sure, with the branding if the building is going to look different on the inside.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So aside from your marketing and stuff, you also kind of do creative art on the side. I know you've started doing those stump prints or whatnot that you see around town. Can you talk about those a bit?
Yeah, I started doing those just kind of as like needing a break from my computer. I took printmaking also in school, so
cool.
Printmaking and like lino cut or using a press or working with ink has kind of always been a thing too since school, and I just needed to do something different for a weekend.
Right.
I live semi-rural, and hydro had been clearing power lines, so all up and down the roads near my house, there were stacks and stacks of stumps. And at first I thought, like, these are going to get snapped off instantly. And then a couple of weeks later, everyone's stumps were like starting to get rained on and whatever. So I scoped out a few and started experimenting. I think didn't really know how to go about that in the first place because everything I was doing just kind of looked like a black blob in the shape of a stump. But through some trial and error, got to the point that it was actually a stump. Nice. So all of the tree prints and that kind of side of things is just kind of a nice way to participate in Craft Revival, but definitely like the branding and working with small businesses is like the meat of
the primary.
Yeah, pulp and paper.
This last year obviously has been crazy for everyone. How has that been, not only for you? You mentioned that you are a mother as well. You have a family. How has this whole year been for you, your new company, your new family, being a woman in business? Can you speak on what it's been like to run this company, especially over the last year?
Yeah. Last March, I had a number of things I tried to book projects into the future and whatever else, schedule myself. And I had a set amount of things to take me through March and April. And all of a sudden, kind of March break came, school was shut down. People started to really like panic to wait to see what was coming for us.
Last year,
yeah. And had a couple big cancellations just within all the same few days. Like it seemed like everything happened in those first like 4 days or so. And wasn't really sure where things were going to go. And very quickly after that, people just switched gears with what they were doing. And all of a sudden, Nomad was doing hot meals that they were delivering and all kinds of things like that. All of these like deliveries and really like unique business approaches to clients who were existing that had canceled other projects were now shifting and needing all these other things that were all a rush. So I think very quickly March went from a bunch of cancellations to like working at all hours, just
new
trying
branding and new marketing,
just trying to get people what they needed to keep carrying on through like the dark days of COVID. And then it didn't really slow down.
So it's been crazy. It's been busy then.
Yeah, it's been really busy.
Yeah, it's amazing how some businesses have really had a tough go and other ones haven't been able to keep up just because of the pivot of people's needs, I guess, the supply and demand, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. So obviously there's a relationship that's created between a designer and a company a lot of the times. And right off the bat, it's usually really busy. From what I know of design, it's very busy, very involved right off the bat. The designer and the company work together. They put together this amazing project. What happens? What's the relationship after that? What happens when the design is done and you give them their logo or whatever it is they need? Do you continue to work with that company? Does the company just take it and run on their own? How does that work?
I think that works a couple different ways. Sometimes they just need one specific thing and then they're kind of off and running. They need packaging and then they go with their packaging that's now been printed. In the case of like a logo that's kind of from the inception of the business, or they want to rebrand, they want all of the logo, the brand assets, all the pieces, what will my social media look like, all of that stuff. It is up to them at that point to carry on and to run with the look that we created together. So I think that there is sometimes like this idea that like, oh, I'll hire a designer and then I'll sit back and watch my brand become a booming success. And I think that like you have to put in as much as you want to get out. It's not like the design will help you get there, but it's not going to be the be all end all, especially for all of these small businesses. So there are some people that are doing a really great job of kind of taking it and running with it. Like North Star Silver is one who's done like a fantastic job of taking what we started together and just like pushing it all the way through.
Awesome.
Canada West Maple as well. Heron House, Roots to Harvest. Like so many just like take everything that I can give them and like maximize it.
Awesome.
And I think to hire a designer, any designer, not just me, and do all of those steps and go through all of that process to end at your brand and then say, well, thanks.
Yeah.
And post it on Instagram once and then continue taking photos that don't match everything and whatever is just going to undo all of the work that was done.
One step forward, 2 steps back kind of situation.
Yeah, it's definitely a mutual effort that you have to continue on the other side.
Interesting. And we'll leave links to all of those companies so you can check out how they're using their branding and whatnot. Mostly people are using Instagram as a good way of marketing, websites and whatnot as well you're involved in?
Yes. I will create artwork for websites, but I don't build websites.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yep. That's good to know. So going forward, obviously you're a very busy person, but you'd love to meet new clients, I'm sure.
Yep.
If there's anyone out there in Thunder Bay or in Northwestern Ontario or wherever you're listening in the world and you'd like to get in touch with Heather, how can they go about doing that in the best way?
They can find me through Instagram, which is Pulp Paper Creative. I have a website, which is pulpcreative.ca. My email and all of that stuff is in both places, and you can track me down. Amazing.
So yeah, just to clarify again, Pulp and Paper Creative is the name of your branding company. Or
correct.
Design company.
Yes.
Amazing. Awesome. Heather, thank you so much for joining us. We're very much looking forward to seeing you in the market and seeing what you're going to do with Goods & Co. going forward. You and Maylin are so amazing, and we're so excited to see what comes of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you everyone so much for joining us for this episode of the Goods & Co. podcast. We have several local entrepreneurs lined up for this season of the Goods & Co podcast, so make sure to subscribe and be notified when new episodes are released. Once again, this episode was brought to you by the new Woodside Bar opening this fall inside the Goods & Co Market downtown Thunder Bay, serving up curated cocktails, delicious wines, and craft beers. Follow along on Instagram at The Woodside Bar. That handle again is at The Woodside Bar.